Hello and welcome to another episode of Mike and Dave's Hi-Fi Riff. I'm Mike Evans.
And I'm David Price.
And David, this week, what are we going to be talking about?
We're going to be talking about mobile Fidelity Sound Labs LP records.
Indeed. They're in the news at the moment.
Yes, they are.
Yes, and maybe not quite for the reasons which they would like to be in the news for.
Yeah, well, you'd think what had happened, the sort of World War III being declared or something, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Amongst the kind of small but very vocal section of vinylistas, who aren't very happy with what they just discovered.
Maybe we should set the scene a little bit, because I think between us we've got a few MFSL vinyls and CDs, to be fair.
Yep.
The idea is that they're taken from the original master recordings.
Yep.
They've had great success. They've been going since the late 70s, I think.
Yeah, 1977.
77,
yeah.
There we are. And they've have in their catalogue over the years some absolute classic gems of albums, and always been associated with squeezing the last drop out of each album, by using great quality vinyl, the original masters, analog process, etc. So for hi-fi aficionados, it's been sort of the go-to gold standard for recording and records, hasn't it?
They were, I think for us, when we were just getting into hi-fi in the late 70s, early 80s, they were the holy grail, weren't they?
Yes. Yeah.
And, we would go to W.H. Smith or wherever and buy our copy of, the Human League's Dare or whatever, Rush's Moving Pictures, and that they were about £4 or £5, something like that, for an LP back then. And Mophis were sort of 10, 15, 20 pounds, something like that.
And hard to get.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
You couldn't just go to Smith's and buy the Mophie. You had to. It was a very special sort of order, because they were from the States. They were imported, and in fact, pretty much still are.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know anyone who had a Mophie remaster or repressing of anything back then.
Sure.
It's incredible.
Sure. No.
So.
Absolutely. And in fact, I've still had to import some from the States even now, and been stung for import duty, which is a bit annoying here in lovely UK Britain. But this sort of can we call it a scandal? Can we say scandal? Is that too strong a word?
Well,
the debate.
It's Mophie-gate, isn't it?
Mophie-gate.
So
yes.
I think scandal is pushing it a bit, but you know how the internet is. Then anything is, as I say, kind of World War III, isn't it? It's the absolutely people going ballistic and bonkers about it.
And can you describe what's happened? What it's all about?
Yeah. So obviously, back in the sort of late 70s when they started, and for a long time after that, the way that they would produce a mobile fidelity version of an album would be to get the master tape from the studio, whoever owned it and stored it, and then put it through their process of using very high quality mastering equipment, some of which was I think famously built by Tim de Paravicini, or modified, kind of tube amps and so on, and EQs and all the rest of it. So you would basically take the original master and make a sort of
a carbon copy,
basically
as close as possible.
Yes, a cutting master from that pretty much directly.
And kind of we've all sort of taped from tapes, haven't we?
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, I'm sure many people will have had the old lovely dual cassette decks before, where you could do your mixtapes for your mates.
Yeah.
But you always had a loss.
Yeah.
Every time you did it, and you'll know that, because if you copied a mixtape in the same way, then it would be worse again.
Yeah.
So every single time it gets worse. So you were talking about some of the albums we bought from high street stores in the 80s and late 70s. They were very seldom from the original master.
Well, I mean, it depends. Certainly, the if you bought an original pressing of
the price I paid, they were.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So, but I mean, we were talking about this earlier. There were cheap kind of budget, nice price, or record labels like Fame that would do these kind of cheap represses, and they were often taken on first or second or even third generation copy masters.
Mm.
So the more copies you make from the original master, the worse obviously it gets.
Yes.
Obviously the idea for Mofi Records was that they would take the original master tape and then basically make their cutting, basically cut it from that directly.
Yeah.
And so what has happened is that it has seeped out through the internet that Mobile Fidelity are no longer doing that. They have been copying the original master tape onto DSD and then kind of putting it through their process and making their lovely, cuts from that DSD master.
So it's not AAA strictly.
It's not AAA, absolutely.
No,
it's ADA.
ADA,
isn't it?
yeah, analog,
Digital. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
digital remaster, and then
Analog.
back on the analog.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. So we've got this ones and
Yeah.
zero process stuck in the middle of it.
Yes, I mean, I think it's to be completely accurate, it's not a digital remaster. It's simply a digital copy of the original master,
Yes.
which is then mastered in the sort of analog domain using analog EQ or whatever needs to be done, and then it then goes to to the cutting lathe. But
And it turns out that they've been doing this for a little while as well, and in
Yeah.
different standards of quality.
yeah, so I think from what we now know, the process started in 2011, and they started doing it at the standard DSD rate, DSD-64, which is 2.8 megahertz, if my brain's served me correctly. And then they've now started doing it at DSD-256, obviously much higher quality DSD, or basic DSD is very good anyway. It gives roughly, in terms of SACD, for example, which use DSD, you've got 100 kilohertz bandwidth, so 1 to 100 kilohertz frequency response, and a roughly 20-bit resolution, there or thereabouts, which is not bad at all.
Sure.
And obviously DSD-256 is even better. So it's done in very high quality, but this has sort of touched a nerve, I think, is an understatement.
Yes. Yes. I think there's a sort of feeling of there hasn't quite been full disclosure going on,
Yeah.
and I think that's what's upset people. Maybe more than the actual the sonic difficulties which it has. I think they're probably, having listened to some comparatively, they're less important than actually the sort of controversy which surrounds it. Because we've just been doing some quite interesting comparisons. So Dire Straits Communique.
Yep.
That was one of them.
Yep.
Which we've got on a dare I say, a normal album, and then also on Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab.
Yep.
And that was a really interesting comparison because the MFSL one,
There you go.
where we are, I would say certainly sounded different,
Yeah.
without a doubt. And I think we had a difference of opinion, didn't we? So for my ears, I felt this sounded better,
Yep.
and you prefer the sort of all analog one.
Yeah, this is the original pressing that I bought, God knows when, 1979 I think, 1980. We did a direct comparison between the MFSL one here, the MoFi, there was definitely a big difference, wasn't there?
Huge.
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 To me, it meant in almost every way, this was better.
Yeah.
It had a bigger bass, it had a crisper treble, sweeter treble.
Yeah.
Very
Very detailed.
detailed, loads of you could really hear into the mix, whereas this sounded a bit kind of congested, didn't it?
Yes.
A bit slightly nasal.
It felt like Mark Knopfler was way back in the mix as well. Almost as if he's sort of a little bit underwater.
Yeah.
But it was very rhythmic.
Yeah.
And it was nice to listen to.
Yes.
And there you come into the sort of, there's the rub. It would be nice to have both.
Yeah.
But
I think the MoFi was also very rhythmic and very nice to listen to. But I mean, this is the interesting thing. So I'm not sure because I decided that I preferred the original with all of its faults. It seemed to be slightly more musical. Mike, you didn't. You preferred that one.
I thought this was outstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did too. I thought that's outstanding. But I'm not sure if it's just because I'm used to listening to this.
Sure.
You know.
Yes.
Yeah,
we do get a bit like that, don't we?
So-
Whereas not an album I'm massively familiar with.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to hear such a night and day difference.
Yeah.
I mean, within a second, it
Yeah.
was totally obvious.
Yeah.
That there's a massive difference.
Absolutely. Within the first bar, you know, and the first beat.
Absolutely. But interestingly, we then went to Supertramp.
Yep.
And we're listening to the Logical Song.
Yep.
From Breakfast in America album. And in fact, here's your master. I think mine might be still in the still in the house.
Yep.
But there was splitting hairs between them, wasn't it? It was hardly any difference at all.
Yeah.
Between your master recording and my original pressing.
It was much closer.
Really
wasn't it?
close. Yeah.
It was
yeah.
much closer.
Yeah. I mean, certainly not that immediate difference.
Yeah.
And for me, I've got to be honest here, that's quite unusual for Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab recordings. I've normally found them to be consistently really, really good. And if I've already bought the album, then it's,
Yeah.
with the odd exception,
Yeah.
normally a massive improvement.
Yeah.
And the same, I mean, probably shouldn't neglect their CDs. I know we're talking about their analog process today, and you know that's just come into question. But they do some amazing CDs as
Yeah.
well, some fantastic recordings. One of my big differences is I've got a copy of, you know what I'm going to say, Permanent Waves by Rush.
Have you, Mike? I didn't know you were rushed up.
On both, and yeah, I mean the MFSL one's amazing. You know,
Yeah.
it sounds so much better.
Yeah.
The original one sounds a little bit sharp and a bit harsh.
Yeah.
But we know it's actually a really well recorded album.
Yeah.
You've just got to get the right kit to play it on. But when you do, it's amazing. But so a few of those, I've got a copy of The Wall on CD.
Yeah.
That sounds great as well, compared to the
Yeah.
standard pressing which you buy.
Yeah.
So I'm always impressed with MFSL.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of my $1 million question here is this revelation a deal breaker? Does that mean we now no longer go out and buy any more Mophie records?
I don't think it does mean that it's a deal breaker. So I think what is the deal breaker is the price of Mophie albums.
Yeah,
So,
fair point. Fair point.
So we in the UK, if I want Mophie stuff, I use a company called the Vinyl Adventure, and we'll put a link to them in the description later. But you know, they basically, you can, this one, as you can see, this one a couple of years ago was £45 for you know, Breakfast in America, and the quality of it is very nice indeed. It's a beautiful
It's
thing.
gorgeous, isn't it?
Lovely artifact.
Yeah.
Very quiet vinyl surfaces and all the rest of it, and I'd be quite happy to pay that. Some of the more recent ones are kind of getting closer to 60, 70, £80, and we also have here, and here's one I like Blue Peter.
Hey, this is very exciting.
This
Brand new, unboxed.
Ultradisc one step sort of stuff, and these are going for when they they're only a small kind of limited edition come out, but these kind of sell for 130 to 160 pounds sometime.
Yes.
And to me, that's the deal breaker.
Yes,
That's incredibly expensive.
Sure.
I'd be more minded to spend 45 quid on that than I would 160 or whatever on this.
Yes.
But I mean, I think for thoroughness' sake, as we've spent such a long time listening to various Mophie and non-Mophie things, if you'd like to do an unboxing of this, Mike, just to show us what we've got in the box.
Sure, I'll have a go. Probably should have bought a pen knife or something.
Yeah,
But,
I think you'll...
we'll kind of get it open somehow.
Yeah.
He said, famous last words.
But I mean, the
I won't be long.
take your time. So, can I help you out?
You crack on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
So,
I'm with you here. I don't feel like it's a deal breaker at all.
Yeah.
I'll still buy it. I still think the quality's great. Having listened to a couple of the digital ones earlier, I'm still extremely impressed with it.
yeah.
And as you say, particularly the quality of the vinyl is excellent. if you can actually open the packet
Yeah.
at all, then it's then you know that's
Well,
that's the hard bit.
there you go.
Oh,
I've
look at
done
that.
it now.
You star.
So,
Excellent. But I mean, I think you can see here, you know, it's a premium package, isn't it? They really do pay attention to all aspects of it.
yeah, even the film
Even the-
wrap
that's
is,
right.
can withstand a nuclear war.
Are you sure you're going to open this film now?
Yeah. So
Exactly.
here we go. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be able to open the box by yourself, Mike.
There we are. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's do this.
Yeah.
So here we are. Set.
So this is what the problem I had doing this as well. So let me
Yeah.
set that. Then you can. This is what you get when you open it up.
There we go. So we've got a nice bit of foam.
Yeah.
We have everything about the Ultradisc one-step process.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Let me
and then-
hold that for you, and you can.
Thank you. And then here we are. Look at this. We've got that's kind of the original album sleeve there, with all the lyrics on it, which I think is really quite fabulous there. And then we've got this. Here we go. Look at this. Not even sure how we get that out. We've got a box within a box. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
So there we go. This is it. A lovely, gorgeous album, Mophie album here.
That's right, and these are on 45 RPM, so you get 2 discs at 45
Yes.
RPM.
Yeah. There we are.
And obviously, that's not just a Mophie thing. There are various companies that do that, and the advantage of that, of course, is that you can cut at higher levels onto a 45 RPM disc, and obviously get better dynamic range and signal to noise ratio.
Yeah, it's like recording on a
yeah.
faster tape, isn't it? It's the same
Basically,
sort of
yeah.
thing.
And so there's your second album there, and there's your foam bit at the back.
Very
so
good. Very
it's
good.
a very lovely thing, a thing of
It
great
is.
beauty.
It really
isn't
is.
it?
And you know, we'll give it a spin later and
Yeah.
see how it sounds. But
If you look at the vinyl here, it comes in there very nice polythene lined inner sleeve, which stops the record being scratched every time you take it in
you
and
can
out.
buy those actually separately.
You
And
can,
actually,
yeah.
You know, if you don't have them on your records, they're really worth doing because
Yeah.
they really do keep them preserved.
So there we go.
Fabulous! Look at that. Is that our first unboxing video?
Yeah, and it's very hard
We
to
need to get better at it.
yeah, you can tell we've been doing this a lot, can't you? So, but you can tell if you look through there, it's translucent.
Totally transparent. Yeah.
So,
It's not repressed vinyl, is it?
No,
So-
it's virgin vinyl.
Virgin vinyl. Yeah.
And this is what you. I mean, when I lived in Japan, I bought loads of LPs. And almost all Japanese vinyl is semi-translucent like this. You can actually see through the. There you go. You can see through the vinyl. It's supposed to have no impurities, but it's a
Yeah.
thing of beauty. And you know, do the full vinylista thing and give it a sniff.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Excellent.
So good vintage.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
know I'd be sniffing vinyl on YouTube. That's
No, well, I'm not going to make any comments.
But you don't want to sniff that.
I can smell it from here,
Yeah.
as they say. But look, I think the bottom line is, look, okay, Mophie, you probably should have told some people sooner, but for me, it's not the end of the world. I'm going to carry on buying it. I love it. You can see all the quality.
Yeah.
I still think it's as good a sound as you can get, even if they're using this DSD process. Maybe that's a bit controversial. Don't know, but
I think it's very high quality. I think personally, it depends on the individual, reissue or remaster, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
some, for example, the Supertramp was much closer between the two of them than the Dire Straits.
Yeah.
But I think the earlier all analog pressings that were coming out in the 70s, late 70s and 80s and 90s, I think were absolutely fabulous, and I love them. But the modern sort of DSD ones are still extremely nice things
Yes.
to have. Can you hear that it's digital? I think, to me, I still think I can rhythmically. I think the sort of analog pressing it works slightly better, but from a hi-fi point of view, in terms of bandwidth, bass power, smoothness, and silkiness, and all that kind of stuff of the sort of tonality and everything, it's fantastic. Even via DSD, it's done to a very high quality. I still think personally the best way to experience a record is to buy the original pressing. So if it's the Wall, when did that come out? 78?
Yes, it must be,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, it must be later than that. It was because it was Christmas #1 in 1980, wasn't it?
Yeah.
79.
79.
Yeah.
So you'd want to get something done around the time of the release of the original album. You try and buy a first pressing, and use a very good record cleaner, and you're kind of as pretty much as good as it gets. Obviously, that's all analog, isn't it? If you do
Yes, yeah.
that.
Actually, just slightly off topic here.
Yeah.
You've just mentioned that we can do a review of a record cleaner, haven't we? We've got a record cleaner which we can
Yeah.
we can do a riff on maybe at a later date.
Yeah,
That would be
absolutely.
quite cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. 'Cause I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, we've got several, and that's part of the sort of audiophile, vinylistas kind of world, isn't it?
It really is.
Going to record fairs and buying lots of cheap vinyl and then whacking them on the record cleaner.
And away you go.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite MFSL?
It's really hard to say,
Okay.
but I think that the Bob Marley stuff they did in the 90s was really
Yeah,
really
you
nice.
talked about that. I need to
Really
listen to that.
Rich and
Yeah, okay.
fruity
Okay.
sounding, and the Astrid Gilberto
Essential.
release, that's fantastic.
Okay.
So Gets Gilberto, I think it was, but
Okay.
there's all sorts. I mean, I think they're a lovely thing to have. Would you spend 130 quid on an Ultradisc? Maybe as a Christmas present or a birthday present,
Sure.
or a present to yourself.
Yeah.
But me personally, probably not as a normal thing. But then again, this kind of standard issue Mophie makes a great case for itself.
Really cool.
So,
My favourite is, for what it's worth, is Ricky Lee Jones' first album. I think that sounds incredible on
Yeah.
FSL. I really do.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard it, listen to it. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. It's not a duff track on it. It's one of those albums, and yet it's still a bit obscure. Not too many people know
Yeah.
about it, but beautifully recorded.
Yeah.
And I think the great recording link with the MFSL process is actually a recipe for solid gold.
Yeah.
So there we are. Anyway, an unusual riff for us today. Not talking about equipment or kit, but end product.
Yeah, well, records is one of our favourite subjects. So
100%. Talk about it all day. And I hope you've enjoyed that riff.
Yeah.
We've certainly enjoyed making it. But don't stop buying your MFSL records. And
Yeah,
CDs.
and if you'd like us to do a piece on Japanese vinyl, which is a subject close to my heart, and whether Japanese pressings are better or different or worse than non-Japanese, then say so in the comments. Let us know.
Yeah, we'll bring some in.
Absolutely, we've got plenty to play with.
Yeah.
So thanks very much, and
Excellent. We'll
see you
in the
soon.
next one.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take it away.